beginning days of our marriage consisted of getting to know a new environment. We both started new jobs and we were all excited about that.
We had moved to Southern California.
We spent the weekends at the beach.
We were in love with each other, just living the exciting California lifestyle. 2 years into the marriage, things began to fade for me.
One Sunday afternoon, I was getting ready to go play golf with a friend of mine, and I walked upstairs just to really say goodbye, and she was laying on her bed crying. And I said, "Cheryl, what's wrong?" And she said, "I'm not sure I love you. I'm not sure I ever loved you."
I didn't understand what the missing link was, but I knew that I was unfulfilled.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
I started to create the idea that I was in a bad marriage.
You know, to me, we had a perfect marriage.
A lack of intimacy, closeness. We didn't really know each other's hearts.
You know, our jobs were going great. We had a lovely life together. So I was just really, obviously, asleep at the wheel.
What came to mind was the thought that it must be the fact that we don't have any children, and ended up having our twin daughters in 1988. And for about 6 months for me, it felt like that was what filled the hole.
And then finally one day I was upstairs in the girls' bedroom reading them a bedtime story, and the doorbell rang. And I'm going, why isn't Cheryl getting the door? Because she was downstairs and she didn't get it. So I went downstairs and went to the front door, and it was the sheriff serving me with papers. It was just crazy. Honestly, I didn't know how to react initially. I was just so shocked.
And what he didn't realize is that there was a green elephant in the room, and that was this other man.
I really didn't hear about the other man until well after the divorce.
We started talking about each other's lives, our discontentment, and it seemed like this person was filling that hole for me.
For the 2 years that we were going through the whole divorce process, I asked Cheryl, "Are you having an affair?" And she would always say, "No, what are you talking about?"
This man came down to Southern California. That's when it turned into a physical affair.
It wasn't until several months after the divorce, I went over to Cheryl's house one day to pick up the girls, and he was there.
But all I knew is that the emotional hole was being filled, and I loved it, and I was pursuing it. Three months after we divorced, I had a spiritual awakening. And what that did for me was helped me to see how selfish I had been. I then saw the dissolution in the other relationship. I realized that I wasn't in love with this person at all.
6 months after the divorce was final, Cheryl called me and said, "Look, I've written you a letter, and I'd like to come over to your house and sit down and read it to you."
And to apologize for all the hurt I had caused him.
And my first response was, "You're out of your mind. If you want to come over and talk to me about the girls, that's fine. But other than that, I don't want to have anything to do with you." But she pleaded with me, and finally I agreed. I said, "Okay, you can come over and read the letter, but when you finish reading the letter, you need to leave."
I sat on the couch in his home. I was shaking.
So I sat across the room, and she read the letter.
And I had mentioned to him that I felt like maybe we were supposed to try again.
I never saw myself reconciling with Cheryl. I was so angry at Cheryl that for 3 years after the divorce, I could not even look at her in the eye when I would go over to her house to pick up the girls.
He pretty much looked at me and said, "There's absolutely no way I would ever do that."
At about 5 years, I started warming up to the idea. So we started seeing each other, and the way that looked, it played out in like family dates.
I had been pursuing Jeff to just come over for dinner.
I had some fears that I hadn't overcome yet. So as I would feel us starting to get a little closer together, I would get nervous because I still hadn't resolved the issue of trust. Can I trust her? Would I get involved with this lady that split up my family?
I just saw the vision of our family being back together and what that could look like.
Gradually, our dates became more personal, and then I did realize that I was starting to fall in love with my ex-wife.
Jeff told me that he was in love with me again when our girls were at camp.
And while they were gone, we had a whole week together where we could go on multiple dates, and we started talking about what this could look like, and we decided to get remarried.
We told our daughters after they came home from camp.
We tell them, we say, "Brittany and Lauren, we have a surprise for you."
And we proceeded to tell them that that we were going to get remarried.
Brittany just buckled at the knees, started crying, And Lauren was like, "Are you for real? Are you for real?" And she just started running around the house laughing.
What kids long for is that their parents are back together.
After 7 years of divorce, on October 3rd, 1999, we were remarried at the chapel in Beaver Creek, Colorado.
It was just the four of us.
It was a glorious day. There was these huge windows in the back of the chapel, and the sun was just shining through the windows.
It was the most surreal day of my life.
You know, we put our family back together.
I had to go to counseling. I had to figure out what was it that I did that caused our marriage to fail.
When things are going best in our marriage is when I'm looking at how can I be a better husband.
We figured out that we were extremely selfish people.
I certainly wasn't concerned about her feelings.
For me, of course, it's romance and wining and dining and talking and cups of coffee.
I basically wasn't there on an intimate level. And if you had asked me early on in our marriage, what does intimacy look like to you? I thought you were talking about sex.
Love was more than romanticism. It was mature love.
One of the things I learned to do in our second marriage was to listen to Cheryl. In fact, many times she will pull my face together and say, "Listen to me with your whole face."
I realized that love is a choice and that I had made a choice not to love my husband.
The changes that I saw in Cheryl was I noticed a change in her demeanor. She had more of a gentle and quiet spirit.
What I didn't realize, he is full of integrity and loyalty, and I didn't see all that before.
In a lot of ways, she was treating me more like a husband when we were divorced than she was when we were married.
It was 18 years ago that all this happened. I still ask Jeff every once in a while, "How did you ever forgive me after all the hurt that I caused?" It makes me just love him more.
I wake up every morning, it's like, I can't believe this person is laying beside me in my bed and they were actually remarried. Because it's the same person that 3 years after the divorce, I couldn't even look at her. I was so angry at her and disgusted with her, and now I can't imagine being more in love with her.